Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Drive That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof.
G'day, hey, how are you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with crank.com. So today, tonight, this morning, wherever you are in the world, it's a great pleasure that I'm finally getting down to have a chat with Chris Themelco of Australian Melodic Death metal powerhouse Orpheus Omega, who have been tearing up the scene here in Australia since 2008, I believe. Caught you guys a couple of times in South Australia. You've just released your fifth album, Emberglow, through Wormhole Death Records on July 24th, which is an absolute fucking ripping album, as is all your albums. You're also super busy with what you do at Monolith Studios as well. So thank you so very much for joining me, mate, to talk about all things Orpheus Omega.
Dude, thank you so much. I also don't know how to follow up with that intro. So thank you.
Mate, I'm the king of the fucking intros, mate. Prepared. You got to be prepared.
Absolutely.
So first off, man, for the uninitiated dude, can you kind of give us a backstory, a little bit of a history of Orpheus Omega, kind of where you started from, and how it all began?
Yeah, long story short, I met Joao, our original guitarist and co-founder, at uni back at La Trobe in Melbourne. And we basically were just both metalheads who probably didn't go to enough classes in that year. Got along really well, and Joao pretty much introduced me to I was already into In Flames and Children of Bodom and stuff like that, but he pretty much introduced me to Dark Tranquillity, At the Gates, Insomnium, and I was just like, oh my God, I need to be playing this kind of music. And that was it. That was that was pretty much the thing that ignited it. And then from there, we were just like, we need members. And we had a bunch of friends, and my brother, obviously, as well on drums, but we had a bunch of mates who we never were in a band together, never really made things work, who we were just like, well, they're the first ones we're going to ask. And that's how the band came together. We wrote our first song at our first band prac, and that was like, sick, we got to do this. So yeah, that's how that happened. So many moons ago and much more hair ago.
Yeah, so what was that like at the beginning there and getting in there and making that first album? Because the evolution and growth from you guys has been unreal, but even from the get-go, you've already had a sound defined and they're ready to roll.
I think I think it's fair to say the first album wears our influences on our sleeves pretty openly. It was a glorified throwback to Bodom and Dark Tranquillity, then the real 90s era stuff for sure. So I think we just wrote that first EP and then kept writing until we felt do we have cohesive enough songs to have a full album? And then sort of kept whittling away at that. We did the album through Systematic Productions, who were super helpful from just the pre-pro side, which was just sort of set us up in the right way to get into the album. And then basically just went in a bit green, but at the same time, we wanted to get the best production out of it as we could. Because I still think you can go back and listen to Bleed the Way and it still sounds great. It doesn't sound sometimes you get the messy first album. I still think, even music aside, whether you like the album or not, it's something I can listen back to and still be still sounds good. It sounds like effort went into this. And I think that's something we've sort of laid the foundations on that album and sort of were okay, well, if that's the first one, we always have to keep pushing ourselves. And I feel like we have. So that's really nice.
I used to definitely most done that very well. Tell me a little bit about your production side of things. How did you kind of fall into doing that, and kind of when did you start kind of rolling with that?
So originally I was doing software and web design. That's why I was at uni, and I enjoyed it for the most part until when I went into that industry. It was around the same time we did the first album. And so I was getting a bit more into the technical side of things, mostly all bands to save some money, you know? And being a nerdy guitarist, I always really enjoyed the nitty gritty side of recording. Some of the other members didn't really care, but I was I want to know everything. I want to know what mic and what preamp and what settings. I think that's part of my ADHD and a few other things, just that real stupid detail oriented for no reason sometimes thing. And then from there, I was just well, maybe I can tweak some tones at home and maybe I can do a few extra things to make life easier in the future. And then from there, it was just became more and more of a thing that I was enjoying. And then I started helping local friends bands as well. And then, one thing led to another, and I was like, oh, yeah, I really don't like the IT industry anymore. I like this thing a lot. And then, just sort of did some like part-time jobs until that became something that I could go, okay, now it's time to jump in the deep end and commit to it being a full-time job. And that was what, 13 years ago, something like that, 12 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy journey for you. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons you've learnt so far in the 13 years of doing that side of things as well?
Mm,
Because, it's very fulfilling and it's very important for people to do something they love in their life.
yeah.
We've only got one bloody life. Don't waste your time
Yeah.
doing something you hate.
Yeah. I rather struggle like through the difficulty of running my own business and obviously like stressing about money and all the things that you do while I'm doing something I completely love rather than be comfortable doing something I could give a shit less about. So, um, I get to learn a lot because I get to work with a lot of musicians. And obviously, as time's gone on, that sort of like back and forth factor with the bands I work with has become more and more ingrained. So, like, I sort of went from being really heavy on the engineering side to now moving way more to the production side, like being a producer, like actually being involved in putting the songs together, helping write riffs, all that sort of thing, because that's like so much more important realistically. Because, like I always use the reference, people listen to black metal willingly
Yes.
and the production's garbage, but that's the point, right? Like that's sort of like a aesthetic of the music. But realistically speaking, you're listening to it because it just sort of adds to what the music's already doing, right? It's that raw grossness and whatnot. So the mix value is only there to like help add to what's already there.
Yep.
But if the songs aren't already there, if the energy is not already there in the recording, no mixing is going to save it. So that was something I learned, and now I feel like while I'm always trying to better myself mix wise, my focus and my what I learn and what I can bring to the table is way more on the production side. And obviously that helps Orpheus as well because I loosen the reins a lot more writing wise, and I'm playing more of a producer role when everyone else is coming with ideas because now I know how to go. That's a really cool idea. I can help shape that a little bit more to suit Orpheus now instead of just like sometimes, someone might be like, oh, I don't think it really suits the band. It's like, but it can, like,
Yes, so that being said, kind of that was what kind of touched a little bit on one of my questions I had in here. How do you balance your role kind of
mm,
as wearing the musician hat and Orpheus Omega and also the producer hat?
mm. Once again, ADHD brain, it's easy to get bored. So I think it's fun when now that so many of the members want to write, I enjoy that I get to play producer and basically go impress me. Like that's a really I've been doing it so long. Matt and I being the remaining original members in the band. It's really fun to have new blood in the band who want to throw things at the wall, and then we get to be like now we're getting excited because it's not just us doing it. It's not just the same process we've followed for however long. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of hearing things other people are doing and then having all the like cogs turn and go, oh, what can we do with this? And like, oh, actually, I have a really cool idea. What if we did that? So that's what makes it fun. And I don't think I would have had that if I didn't do the Monolith Studio stuff, to be honest. So it's been, I learn from every band that comes in, even if they're completely new or they've been around for ages. I would like to hope that every time I work with a band, they learn something just as much as I learn something.
Oh
Because
yeah,
otherwise it kind of feels pointless. Otherwise you're just sort of treading water. It's like, okay.
let me just quickly share a window, people, here, if it will share for you. Did that come up with your site? This is the
Oh
Monolith
yeah.
site, and this is actually some of the bands you've worked with, like Andy Gillian. You've done, like on that Portraits EP, you've done some work with him, but you've worked
Yeah.
off and on with him over the years, yeah?
Yeah.
And then that Flaming Wreckage album, Memoriam. Look at dude, the talent you've worked with over here. You must feel pretty proud and chuffed to kind of sit back at kind of what you've kind of had a hand in too, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, like honest answer is absolutely. Like it's some people want to get to that point or like the goal is like I just want to work with big bands or like that sort of thing. My mentality is like I want to work with and grow with bands. So when I look at some of the bands who like, started out just wherever they were to now watching some of these bands touring with my favorite artists who I've gotten to work with, it's fucking awesome. Like it's I don't know, it's like I have like proud dad vibes all the time. It's like I don't have kids, I have pets. And like, but when I see the bands I work with do well, I just have that like proud dad thing. And it's just like the best feeling. So yeah, I absolutely love it. And sometimes because work is pretty nonstop, like between, it's just music, 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 which I love. Sometimes I have to remember to sit and look back at stuff like that, like just to go, what came out this year that I worked on, like, and then just go, holy crap, there's so many cool things. And like, perfect example was that Flaming Wreckage Terror Inferno album. That is it's one of the best albums I've worked on. It's incredible. Um, and seeing the response that they've had to that, and obviously with Andy as well with his new album, like it's so fulfilling to be a part of those. Like it's not my band, but I feel genuinely invested in a lot of them, and so I can take that energy back to Orpheus. It's what's kept me going for as long as, at least I speak for myself, for as long as I have in the band, because I feel constantly challenged. And then I work with all these other bands, and the next thing I want to do is go, I want to write a song that good. So I want to like bring that to Orpheus, like I want to go, all right, I worked with this band and they did this amazing thing. And like, now I want to do that. So it's like, I feel constantly inspired by the bands that I'm working with.
Yeah, I've spoken to several, like a lot of musicians that have like various different projects and other
Mm,
things music related involved. And I don't know how you speak for yourself, but I feel like that kind of motivates you, as you kind of just said there, for your other
mm,
projects. You go, oh man, you get ideas kind of flick off in your head and actually makes you a better musician and
100%.
artist, being able to have
Mm-hmm.
these different vehicles and
Mm,
platforms to work with.
yep. I think um, a pretty classic trope as well in metal is like all the best metal musicians don't listen to that much metal.
Yes.
So like if you can broaden what you listen to and what you're involved in as much as possible, you will get influences from so many different things. I remember during like lockdowns in Victoria, one of the albums I discovered, and like an artist that I knew of because of the radio, but never really listened to, was Dua Lipa.
Yep.
And that Future Nostalgia album that dropped around when it was like 2021, whatever it was, freaking incredible. I like took so many little things from that were like really cool production wise, and I've like tried to like get them into like some of the metal albums I've worked on because it's just really cool stuff. And like I would have never have thought of some of those things to do if I didn't listen to that album. And it's an album that's so far from metal, it's ridiculous. So I think like from that side, being involved in a lot of projects and just being open-minded to what you're working with is super, super important because I don't know, I feel like it's easy to repeat yourself otherwise. And like we've definitely had a few moments here and there where we've like maybe gotten a bit comfy, but I think as things have progressed, like especially with Where Your Sins portraits and Emberglow, we've definitely tried to like do what we do, but really, really branch out. And I think that'll continue more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, well, you have to definitely gone through some different elements in Emberglow. You're definitely still that melodic death metal band, but you just do have like you are experimenting with these different
Mm.
elements that I can definitely hear because I've heard all your albums as well. Kind of tell us a little bit about that, kind of remaining to true that unique sound, but also experimenting with the
Mm.
creative process as well.
Yeah, I think after we did Where Your Sins, that was like the first like walking through the door of trying some extra stuff. Part of it was me also taking myself more seriously as a vocalist. I've always been the vocalist in Orpheus, but I've never sort of approached it as like I am a vocalist. I'm always like, oh, I'm someone who plays guitar and does vocals, which is not the same thing. So with the last couple of releases, I've always like I've sort of approached it more with like I'm writing guitar for a band that has a front person, that has someone who does vocals. Make sure that there's space for that. And if I have a vocal idea first before guitars or song wise, then I'll jot that down and go, hey, how do we build something around this? So I think that's been a different step as well, just that approach. And the other thing is like not being married to anything, even just like tunings. Like one of the guys came to Emberglow with a song that was in like C, drop C, because we just like muck around with different things. And by the time we mucked around with the riffs and worked on it a bit, it ended up in G sharp. So I think it was the collector. It wasn't that low originally. And so like we just were like, all right, what would this work in? And it's like tried a few different tunings. And when we started playing it in that tuning, it was like, that's the tuning. That just feels right. And then, we get to the chorus and then the melody that I originally had vocally didn't work anymore. So then I got to write something different to suit the song. And it's just like that iterative process of just, you know, doing everything we can, like sort of throwing everything at the wall to be able to write the best song we can instead of just being married to like, but this is the idea and it has to be like this. It's like that just never has to be the case. You can put like broad stroke ideas like, okay, this song serves this kind of purpose or has this vibe, and you can build whatever around that. But if you're too married to it and you're like, everything has to be exactly this, then it kind of stops being a collaborative process. You just kind of have like a very rigid structure and it's kind of like not as fun.
Yeah, and you kind of the band dynamic for you guys has kind of grown and evolved, which you did
Mm,
mention on with the members, and growing out to now people of contributing to the album as well. So
mm,
that's obviously going to have some impact on the way the album is and the
mm.
way the albums are made too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that I think that's the fun part. Like, there's a reason I've never written a solo release. Like, I like writing with people. I fucking hate sitting there and writing on my own because I don't know if it's any good. Like, I don't have anyone to bounce off. I don't have
Yep.
anyone to go, no, that sucks, do this thing, or that's cool, but what about this? Like, that's the best part about writing because you can always go back and go, oh man, remember when we did that bit? What I'm going to do is sit there in the mirror and do that with myself. It's like, I don't have that ability. Whereas, you can look at someone like Andy Gillian, who's just incredible. Like, that man just knows what he wants. Like, it's in his head and then it just needs to go to the paper. I don't have that. I have ideas and I have thoughts and overarching vibes, but I need people as a unit to like come together and like work together to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, and you just have quite the stable unit now, which is really good
Mm.
to see. And you guys have been playing all over the bloody place. The title track, Emberglow, is a ripping title track. Tell us about
Yeah.
that one there.
I think that was possibly one of the first songs I wrote for the album, actually.
Yep.
That like guitar melody, that pretty much that chorus melody is one of the first things I wrote, and I was like, oh man, that's like it's just like stuck in my head, and I was like, okay, I need to build around this, and then it became pretty much building the chorus, building the opening riff that with the cool synthy thing, and then Kez, I was just like, Kez, I want you to write the most like bubble gummy catchy thing because the guitar riff is actually real, like kind of metalcore and bouncy, but I need this almost dancey bubblegum riff on top. And then once we worked out what the notes were to that, it was like, the rest of the song came together like pretty quickly. So it was
Yeah,
like we had the chorus, we had the intro, and then everything else just fell into place.
yeah. And did you know like early on that you were going to go with that as kind of the title track for the album when you made it, or
Not
were you?
really.
Yep.
We toyed around with a lot of different titles, but when we discussed sort of like what the real vibe of the album was and what the story was overall,
Yep.
Emberglow was the song that like encapsulated it. Like it was a really, and then when we had Nicholas Sundin do the artwork for it, he listened to that and a couple of other songs,
Yep.
and he sent us a few different
There we go.
ideas. Yeah, that's and just incredible. The dude's
Ah,
incredible.
it's fucking
Um,
amazing.
he sent us a few things first, and I love this because he sent us like two bits of artwork that he was like, "This was my initial thoughts. Let me know what you think." And we saw them and we were like, "They're good. They're really good," but just wasn't popping. Like it was
Yep.
like they were good ideas, but they didn't feel like completely connected. And then like that same night when he sent those through, it's like 3 in the morning or something. I just see an email, just been like, "Hey guys, sorry, I also tried this one third thing. Might be really off base, but I was just listening to the songs again and had a crack." And it was pretty much 90% of the finished artwork. And we were just like, that one, that one. And then it was pretty solidified that the title was going to be Emberglow. It just, yeah, everything, again, the artwork matched the music perfectly. So everything just sort of married up after that point. And yeah, it was like the weirdest thing because the pre-pro process for this, we did like a week of like 6 hour sessions with Thomas Plek Johansson from Panic Room.
Yep.
We did every evening for 6 hours for like 5 or 6 days, and then during the days as well. So really intense. But everything was like easy, if that makes sense. Like it was intense, but nothing felt like it was pushing uphill. Everything felt like it was always moving towards a goal. And that's such a satisfying process, especially once you get the artwork and you just go, that's that's the album. Like that's exactly the album. So I think it's like all of our artwork has come up really good for the things we've put out. Like, we've worked with some awesome artists who've just nailed it. Like obviously Tristan Tate a few times. obviously Nicholas Sundin and others, Joe Hocking and a bunch of other dudes as well. And everyone's like really understood what we were doing. But I feel like Emberglow is the one that I can just look at, not know anything about the music, and just go, that is something, like yeah, absolutely love it. And I think a lot of people who've had a similar response to it, it's like it's nice to see because it's like, yeah, we know, like we felt the same way.
Yeah, it's a rip and cover, and you kind of did touch a little bit on the themes and concept. Tell me about some of the themes and concepts that you kind of explore with this album.
I think, and obviously, a bit of a product of its time. We all had like a lot of personal stuff going on. Plus, then lockdowns happened, and we were in Victoria, so it was like kind of didn't have a choice but to acknowledge that because it was either basically look inside and write about what was going on, or write about COVID. Like it was sort of that situation. And so Joao and I wrote a lot of the lyrics. Kez wrote the lyrics for Star Maps and contributed to a couple of others as well. But I feel like the lyrics on this one and the themes are a lot more. There's sort of this weird balance of like self ownership, control, and resilience, married with this almost confident apathy as well. Like knowing that some things just fucking suck and that's fine.
Yep.
So you have a song like The Tangle where Dwell basically, comes across from the perspective of Mother Nature just being like, go fuck yourself to the planet
Yep.
because we've completely fucked it. And is, obviously a very personified, swamp thing kind of character or caricature of Mother Nature. But it was just a really blunt song written in a way that's just like, dude, that's like, surely that's if the planet could talk, like, and it was very much like instead of, writing something that was like, some call to arms about climate change or something, like we already do that. Like we already
Yes.
know that that's, we all, I guess most people who follow enough science, I guess, or whatever. But like that didn't seem like an alluring way to write a song. But Joel's really good at writing things from a third person perspective. So like something like The Tangle was like it's a really pissed off monster wanting to fuck shit up, but like for good reason. And so like some of the songs have that vibe, and then something like Emberglow is a bit more of a touching base with the monsters that sort of reside within our own lives, the traumas and difficult situations that sort of come up, and you kind of have to have that thing of do you sort of do you let yourself succumb to it and see what comes of it, or do you stand up with it but accept that it's also part of your life? And we've always had this thing where it's okay to not be okay.
Yep. Same,
There's
dude. It's something I've always banged on about, even
yeah, and
doing this
like
interview stuff and who I am in person.
I think I kind of got sick of like some of the real like we can all do this, it's going to be fine, and it's like I get the perspective, but not everyone gets a happy ending. Some people just get sometimes happy endings. Sometimes it's the Deadpool thing. Sometimes it's the commercial breaks in life that we look forward to.
Yep.
So a lot of the things from my perspective was the like some things just can't be completely fixed, but you can learn to live with them, and you can learn to go, hey, I know you're there, but you're not in control. I am. So something like Emberglow is very much about that, and there's a few other songs on the album, obviously, that sort of followed that thought process. Something like Destiny Machine was obviously me just having a bit of a fuck you to basically just admit like everyone who thinks their group is sort of special sort of thing, like on like social media, and just like not even just social media but just like the clicks that you like. I know that I always feel right with my group of friends because we're like-minded people, but I'm aware of that, like when there's other groups it's going to be a different view. So everyone who thinks that their group has it down pat, it's like no, you fucking don't. Like none of us do. Like, and the second you think you do is the second you sort of stop growing, and the second you stop having any reality sense because you're just like, no, I've got this. No, no, it's like I know what's going on. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, and then
Even the
life or Mother Nature's going to show you
yeah,
pretty
dude,
fucking quick if you think you
yeah,
got it, man. Like I've
damn
just been
right. And
down
like,
from
you
day
know,
one, but you keep fighting.
and it's yeah, exactly right. And like, it's the same perspective of like, oh, governments and deep state stuff, and they, chemtrails, and like they can control the weather. And I'm like, really? Because we're pretty fucked right now. Like, it also fucks them too. Like, do you really think they're that smart? Like, dude, no. And it's just, sort of that was, that song very much has that perspective of just like you can control your own sphere and you can do your best by other people. That's all you can do. That's it. So
Exactly, and the challenges we have in life, and I did get that with a few tracks. Like you just
Mm,
got to keep pushing through. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And kind of, I suppose you through COVID had the music to dive into, and people
yeah,
like me and you have kind of always had that, the bands and the artists and the music to
yeah,
kind of go to when you're having a rough time. And
yeah.
you kind of touched on these group things too. I was talking to someone about Metal Elitist. They're like, "Oh, I like this." I'm like, "Fuck, man, whatever you like, crank it fucking loud, dude. If you
Exactly.
enjoy
Yeah.
it,
Don't.
who gives
Yeah.
a fuck what it is?"
Yeah.
Nobody. Music's so subjective. Can't handle people that go, "Oh, you listen to that, you're not metal."
Yeah.
Mate, who gives a fuck? If
Yeah.
you like something,
But I feel
play it
like
at the end of the day.
you've nailed that, and that mentality in general should just apply to everything.
Yes.
Like, like my mentality is as long as you're not hurting someone else, fucking have at it.
Yeah,
Like it's your life. Like you just said, like you have one life, choose to do your thing. Don't shit on other people for doing it.
that's
Like,
it. And you,
like I'm not a religious person really. Like I'm just not. Like I have sort of, my background's like Orthodox Macedonian, so family very traditionally religious, but I always look at people who are like really, really religious in the sense where I'm like, that's fucked up. But I'm like, hey, look, if you're happy, I don't want to tell you what to do. In the same way, if someone's trans or something, or you're in that part of the community, dude, live life and be happy. And like, I think that just every group needs to remind themselves that same thing. Your group is just your group. You're not
exactly.
you're not any more special than anyone else.
If
Like,
it has no impact on you and on
yeah,
your life and it's not hurting anyone else, then why the fuck, dude? I just spent all last year battling stage 4 cancer. I've worked out that we've
dude,
got one life. You've just got to do what you got to do, and sometimes the chips are against you,
yeah.
dude. Like I went
I
through that, hit remission, then I had another load of shit, then another load of personal shit in my life. But like you said, you hit the nail on the head. You just got to keep pushing through, man, and doing the
I,
best you can.
I guess it's like a really unfortunate thing that you obviously had to go through that, and
It's
like I'm
life.
glad you came out on the other side of that, dude. But like you've had to go through something that kind of forces you to go, yeah, who cares what genre of metal I listen to? It's not important. Like, but a lot of people wrap their lives around other people's lives.
I
And it's
know.
like I don't know, like I get smarmy about things all the time, but it's in my own sort of sphere of just having a chuckle or being sarcastic about something. But like, dude, I could give a shit less what anyone does as long as it's not affecting someone else directly. Why would I care? Like like what self-importance do I think I have in someone else's life
I,
to be like, you shouldn't do that or you shouldn't like that music or whatever? It's like, bro, I don't care. Like, are
and
you having fun? Props to you, man. Like,
exactly. In the state of the music scene, most of these people aren't even fucking paying for music. I was talking to Glenn Benton about this. He
oh
said
yeah,
all these keyboard warriors jump on their fucking keyboard and have their little fucking opinions, but it's like going into a restaurant, eating a steak and getting not paying for the steak and getting up and then complaining about the fucker.
yeah,
It's like, shut the
yeah.
fuck up. You've just consumed an album for nothing, dude. Then you're gonna
It's
get on your high horse and whinge about it. Whereas my generation, we'd go buy the fucking
yeah,
albums and you'd probably hear one song on it and you
yeah,
don't
dude.
fucking complain and you had a great time
Oh,
listening to it.
I think we're definitely like going to that aside of this conversation, but I totally, as a musician and as someone who consumes a lot of creative media, like I love video games, I love cinema, like I love movies. Doesn't matter what the genre is, I just love well done movies. So that's like a big passion for me outside of the music stuff. But as someone who consumes a lot of that stuff, right? Like it's not my job to tell the people how to do it. I can enjoy it or I don't have to enjoy it. I'm not getting told. No one's making me like something. As an In Flames fan, I feel like that's a very all the people. Oh, I only listen Clayman and back this album backwards or this album forwards or whatever. I'm like, they did that like re-recording of Clayman, right? Now, personally, not a fan of it. I was just like, this just doesn't do the original album justice. Like it's that album's so seminal that this new one just feels almost sanitized to me, right? But that was the end of it. I got a couple of mates together. We did a cover of Only for the Week for shits and giggles, which was really fun because it didn't, even though
Nice.
I didn't like the re-recording, it inspired us to do a version. And I moved on with my life because Clayman still exists. But you jump online and be like, this has ruined the original. I'm like, how? It's
Yeah, I
still
know.
there, dude. Like, if they took it away from you, and even then, you probably should have bought it on CD because streaming services will just disappear at some point.
Oh,
So,
fucking
like,
oath.
what are you complaining about? Someone made more music. If you like it, sweet. If not, shut up. Like,
I was on the same boat as you, but like I love their new albums. Too Far Gone.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's really
Dude,
good.
that like I going through treatment. That album was fucking Meet Your Maker, State of Slow Decay. Those
Oh, dude,
tracks on that
it's a
album,
very
like
it's a
it was
hefty
a
album.
oh, it hit me pretty fucking hard going through that. But like I was also playing like a lot of Amigo the Devil and Lord
Oh,
of the
dude, fuck yeah.
Lost and jumping into all these different genres as well. I wasn't
Yep,
just listening to the one thing, but In
yep.
Flames, dude, was huge on my
Yeah,
playlist, man. I love that band.
100%, dude. And like, yeah, it's just like just enjoy what you enjoy. Don't shit on everyone else's, you know. I think that's part and parcel of just the age we're in because like if you're walking down the street and someone was wearing a band t-shirt you didn't like, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to go up to them and be like, that last album was shit. You just move on. But because of social media and the anonymity and the like, the screen that's between you, everyone will just, someone will be like, I really love the new In Flames album. Someone's going to be like, it's not even fucking good In Flames. It may as well be pop. And it's like, you wouldn't say that in person.
No, you wouldn't.
Like,
No
you
fucking
know
way.
why? Because it's not important. Like,
Yep.
but when you're online, it's like, I have to have it. Yeah. So, like, that sort of thing. I'm just like, okay, like, cool,
And
whatever.
Anders is the man. I've interviewed him.
Yeah.
He's an absolute bloody gentleman,
He's
man.
fucking hilarious too. Like,
Yeah, dude, he's really
when they
good.
did the Creator In Flames tour,
Yep.
like it was started this year. I was like pissing myself laughing because he's like between song banter. Used to be like really, he was doing his best speaking English and like just keeping it metal, I guess. As time's gone on, you can tell he's given less of a fuck of the facade. And it's like Mike Lagerfeld. He's like, I don't care that we're in a metal band. I'm just going to talk shit between songs. And it's fucking hilarious. I'm like, I'm half here for the comedy and half for the show. I love it. Yeah. So Anders is fucking incredible. Like, yeah.
Oh, that would have been so good. I was so devil. I missed that. I was still in
Yeah.
recovery at that
Yeah,
point,
totally
dude.
fair.
But that would have been
Yeah.
an amazing
Yeah.
show. I was kicking
Oh,
myself for
and
not
they'll
being
they'll be
there, dude.
back.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
know, dude.
it's weird. They're almost like bigger than they've ever been. It's such a weird like thing that
Yeah.
they're hitting more audiences than they have when their, quote unquote best albums came out. But
Well,
yeah,
fuck, we did touch on streaming. Touring's a huge part of it as a
yeah,
band. Like
yeah.
I've kind of mentioned, like people consume music on these streaming platforms and they're like, I'm supporting the band about this much.
Mm,
You know what I mean? But going along to shows and even for big bands like In Flames, like
mm,
touring and playing is the lifeblood of a
mm,
band. You know what I mean? The hundreds of hours you dedicate to your instrument, to your craft,
mm,
time away
mm.
from your family.
Yeah,
For me, it's a job, and I've always loved music and the art, and it's something that people should be compensated for. But touring is a huge part of what it is these days.
yeah. It's interesting because something I've realized is like, just as a general rule of thumb, we talk about like, especially like in life at the moment, with inflation and the things in the world, we talk about how like the middle class doesn't really exist as much as it used to, right?
Yep.
I feel like the same thing applies to touring because if you're a band that doesn't rely on a touring income, you can kind of just pull back and do what we do, right? Like we pick and choose the tours we do. Like if we get a good offer and it's a good show, we'll do it. If we don't, we don't. Like that's it because we all have careers. Like all of us, pretty much knee deep in some pretty long job aspirations and careers and things and whatnot. If you're in Flames, you've been around long enough that you were there during the boom. So like you can just command the money you need or you're not going to do it.
Yep.
But the mid-tier bands that have to tour, that just have to tour nonstop. I think I want to say the guitarist from Butcher Babies recently left,
Carla.
and
What's
she
her?
was talking about how like it's impossible. Oh, might have been one of the vocalists. So I apologize if I got that wrong. But
Carla
she
Harvey, I
was,
think.
yeah, and she was just like, I can't do it. Like with the touring schedule that's required and trying to have a life, it's impossible. It does not pay enough to do it. And for them, like they're not my cup of tea, but they're a good band. And for them to get the people that like them to shows, they probably just couldn't charge enough for it to be something that doesn't give them minimum wage or whatever it might be. So I feel like it's a really hard time with touring as well because for the amount of touring we would need to do to cover our bills and to, we've all got disgustingly high home loans because we've all bought houses during high inflation times. Yay, smart people we are. But like for us to be able to go on tour, if for the band to get big enough to go and do enough touring for it to be a living would be just unsustainable. So we're kind of happy we ended up in a spot where we're like not that big.
Yep.
We're big enough that we can enjoy what we do and love it, but not big enough that we have to be doing it all the time at a loss. almost like to our own lives. So it is a really interesting time. And talking to a lot of the bands that I'm like lucky enough to be friends with who are on the larger scale, it's been interesting hearing their perspective on it as well, because a lot of it really does come back to a lot of them being like, don't know if I can be away from family this long, that much longer. And it's like, that kind of sucks. Like, because we're going to lose a lot of the bands that are carrying the torch, and we're not going to have the replacements because those bands couldn't cut through. So
Yep.
there's going to be like, I feel like there's a time coming, maybe in the next few years, where there's probably going to be like a 3, 4 year gap where we're missing those higher tier bands because there'll be a lot of retirements in that time. And there's not going to be much to take their place. Like Parkway Drive talk about how grueling it is, even with their level,
Yes.
and they're killing it, right? But like, how many other bands are really doing that? So it's a very interesting time. But the flip side is there's never been an easier time to release music. So there's that too. So there's the swings and roundabouts and all the things.
I know. I'm talking of touring. I just want to share this image. You guys are on the road as well, which is another reason I'm having a
Yeah.
chat to you with Carmeria. That album is an absolute ripper of an album that dropped this year as well. I've been
Oh, dude, they're so
hammering it.
sick.
Oh, aren't they, dude? That's really cool. And you just played Metal to the Max as
We
well on
did.
October 5th. I wanted to go to that one, but I cannot camp with a stoner, dude, so I had to give that one a miss. What was that like over there, dude?
Dude, it was so sick. Like,
Yep.
9 hour drive from
Yeah.
Melbourne. Went up in a 4-wheel drive and blah blah blah. I was pretty unwell, like with just like some stuff going on. And I was like, it's fine. As long as I can rest in the car, I'll get to the gig and it'll be fine. The second we got through to like the compound entry at the site, I was just like a fucking kid in a candy store. It was insane, dude. Like it was just, literally like felt like just genuinely middle of nowhere, middle of the desert with like a freaking, Mad Max encampment. And you just walk in, it's like the stage, food, merch, sound. People are just all dressed up in all different, like Mad Max vibed metal gear. And it was like the sickest thing. Like it was
Emus
so
and
sick.
goats walking around the place as well, wasn't there? I did see that, dude. I've seen lots
Dude,
of photos.
it was so sick. So like Ash and all the crew at
Ash,
Lead
yeah,
Heavy just
Meadows.
killed it. They put so much effort in.
I
So much
know,
effort.
and that's really important for people. Like,
Mm,
yeah, it's great, fucking Knotfest and all this shit, but festivals like Metal to the Max and these really good Aussie festivals that are
mm.
showcasing Aussie talent,
Dude,
like what Northie was
Froth and
doing here.
Fury,
That's the next one, dude. I'm gonna be
fucking
there
hell.
covering that one.
I
That one, like, fuck, dude. Everyone's going, oh, Knotfest is shit. Fuck that. Go to Froth and Fury, man.
he
That
should he
is
should have called it
insane.
he should have just called it North Fest just for
Yeah.
shits.
North
But
and
like
Fury.
I've obviously known Northy forever, as like most metalheads have.
Yes.
And like that dude has just put so much work in because obviously New Dead was
Oh,
massive for so long. Um, and now with Froth and Fury, like having the government on board, like, dude, that's incredible. Like the guy, like it's one thing to run an awesome, successful festival style sort of thing in Adelaide of all places,
I
right?
know,
Like,
Adelaide, dude.
so
That's
I
where
flew
my
over,
hometown.
yeah, dude, and like I flew over a couple of times as a punter to
Yep.
go to New Dead. I can't go this year to Froth and Furious and getting ready for tour, unfortunately. But looking at that lineup, I'm like, get fucked. Like, dude, what the hell? And like that's just like, obviously not just one guy, but it's a small team of people, it's not
Yes.
DAL, it's not Live Nation, it's not, quite frankly, companies that have tons of money to throw at shit if they really want to make it happen. It's just incredible. And like I would love to see more of that. And again, the Metal to the Max is one of the ones where like I don't know what their plans are for next year, but like as someone who does do some promo stuff as well, my brain's just like, what if you could get the government on board to help you guys out? What if you could
Yes.
make it a bigger thing? Like, dude, like,
New South
I
Wales
think,
tourism or big,
yeah,
something
exactly.
like that aboard. Because
Yeah,
like I love festivals like this, and I know he done a fucking amazing job, and I would have just liked to have seen that sell out. Even
yeah.
though I feel like that about the whole Australian music scene. It's like
But dude,
we're all
even
kind of
like
connected.
still getting like something like nearly 300 people or something,
I
and
know
then a
it's
bunch of
there.
an insane amount of bands to camp
Oh,
in the middle of fucking nowhere. That's sick. That's so
yeah.
sick. And if they can keep that going and expand and like, yeah, like I would love to see something like that be almost more kid friendly as well, kind of like the Shark Fest
Yep.
gig up in Mildura.
Yeah, and that was
Because like
sad
if you
too.
could get a family out for the weekend and be like, oh, it doesn't just have to be the adults. Bring the kids with you.
Oh
Have
yeah.
some like Mad Max face painting. I don't know, whatever it is, but like if you can get a government body on board to be a part of that, that would be such a ripper. Like it was already awesome and it was like such an honor to be a part of it. But like I'm just, my brain's just like, what can you do now? What can you do to solidify it, to really cement it? It's like obviously you've got like, yeah, you've got your Froth and Fury in South Australia. You got Steel Assassins in New
Yes.
South Wales and a few others. Dead of Winter in Brisbane, though I don't think that's been going for a while. There's other ones as well. But like that sort of thing, like I think we need to keep having that. Like I don't get me wrong, I love that DAL and all those other like companies will
Oh,
bring out the big boys and whatnot. That's
same.
awesome. But they're not showcasing the local bands. It's not what they're there for. It's not what those shows are put together for. We need people who are doing that. So we need to have more of those shows. I know it's like very small scale, but like even our launch, like we've got a lineup where there's like 3 album launches on that night. We've got an Eden Slain releasing their debut, and they're incredible. Even if you checked us and Carmeria out, go and check an Eden Slain out. That's all I have to say. Witch Grinder, who are just fucking incredible. They put on the best show. And we got Artifact down from New South Wales,
Yep.
a bit more of a modern kind of thing to a twist as well to fit more with some of our stuff too. Victoria K's opening night, it was awesome, like symphonic gothic kind of stuff, and it's like that kind of lineup. I feel like we need to have gigs like that where you can just look at it and go, shit, okay, like I'll be there from the start. Like I want to see more of that on the
Oh,
local
so do
scale.
I, because we have so many fucking amazing
Yeah.
bands here in Australia.
Dude,
You're
I listen
talking.
to more Aussie bands than international acts for sure. You go in my car, like I still rock CDs in my car, but you go look at my like chest of CDs in my Commodore side things, and it's like probably 80% of it's probably Aussie metal bands, and then like my few select internationals that I love, like Soilwork and a few others and whatever. But most of the time, I'm just listening to Aussie bands, man. Like I could live off Aussie music. I mean, I literally do with the studio, right? Like it's like there is a plethora of quality bands in this country. And guess what? They're a lot cheaper than some of the international ones too. So like,
Oh, and some of these festivals, these are unreal with the local fucking
yeah,
talents.
dude.
As talking of coming back to Northie, you'll like the promo and all this, but I fucking started doing all of this media shit. I went to a heavy essay and I was asked to write a
Yeah.
guest review for crank.com for the webzine. Fuck, probably about 7 years ago. And I
Mm.
wrote a guest review and watching all the talent here in like South Australia, then I ended up going to New Dead later in that year and covered that one. Seeing the talent here in Australia just blew me away. And I knew from that
Mm.
fucking moment on, and then I started doing radio, and that's
Fuck yeah.
what's a DJ name? And I'm like, oh, fuck it, Jai. I love Aussie metal, Jai, that Aussie metal guy. So even the name kind of for me come out of a love
That's
for the
sick.
Aussie metal scene as
That's
well.
sick. Look, dude, yeah, like one of the first bands I got into when I was a kid, like in terms of like metal and whatnot, I got introduced to Black Majesty.
Yep.
That was one of the first metal bands I ever listened to, like properly. And that was like game changing for me because I'm like, how is a band this good from here? Like, and then after that, it was Psychroptic.
Oh,
So same mentality. I'm like, wait, what do you mean they're from here?
yeah,
Like,
dude.
wait, Tassie? What the fuck do you mean they're from Tassie? Nothing's in Tassie. Like, that's how it was getting into them and just being like, these bands are from here. And then, you look at even, ignoring Parkway Drive, not that we should because
Yeah.
they're already here, but your Near Obliviscaris's,
Oh,
all those sorts, like Voyager,
yep.
fucking Voyager, dude. Like I've known those guys forever, and like getting into them way back and just being like, yeah, this sick fucking poppy, proggy, crazy, awesome band, and then it's just like, oh, we're just going to Eurovision.
Yeah.
Like, it's. I think it's as Australians, we should be super, super proud of arguably a I want to say industry and climate that doesn't really support the kind of music we listen to.
Yeah.
It's not really, not even from a popularity perspective, maybe from more of like a just general acceptance perspective. Like you go to Europe, metal bands are a dime a dozen in terms of like, yeah, they're on the charts. It's normal. Here, I still think we still have that thing of like, oh, you listen to that stuff, like it's a bit of that.
Oh,
But we're creating bands that, in that, I guess, with that adversity, with that resilience, are pushing probably harder than a lot of their European and American counterparts because it's not nurtured here. So we have to work like twice as hard. Anytime we've gone overseas, the funny thing is the crews and stuff always are like, oh, you guys, you need to give us stuff to do. Like every other band makes us do shit. And we're like, we're used to driving 10 hours between cities and setting up our own gear, dude.
You're doing
Like,
loading up fucking the Enigma bar stairs or
yeah,
something,
oh,
dude.
oh, oh. And like, I think because of that, we've created almost this counter climate where all these bands have had to push way harder
Yep.
to exist and to excel. So when they do get onto that, when they do get the opportunity to get onto that stage, like when you see, and again, it's why I think it's really important that local bands should be supporting internationals. It's pretty shattered to see
Always.
the Metallica tour, no Aussie bands.
I know.
Genuinely disappointing. Like I used to be like less
It's Live
nasty
Nation, though.
about it,
Did you expect anything less from them?
but like I look, honestly, I've worked with Live Nation before. Like, I mean, we've
Yeah.
played shows for them before.
Oh, yeah.
They've always come across as really supportive.
Yep.
So it is surprising to not just, it could have been anyone. It could have been Parkway Drive. Could have been Voyager. Could have been fucking Voyager, man. Like,
King Parrot.
right? Like, dude, that would have been sick. But like, King Parrot and Pantera obviously makes sense, but they've got the connection there.
They're
But it
signed
would
to
have
the
been,
house call.
I don't care who it is, Airborne, man. Like, I would have loved to have seen. I just would have loved to have seen an
That's
Aussie
another
name on a tour like
fuck
that.
yeah, dude.
You
Doesn't
know?
that irritate you? It's like I could go
Yeah.
on, we could go on all day. Like Airborne, they're fucking huge over Europe, man. Selling packed out fucking
Yeah.
stadiums.
Yeah.
Come here to Australia, they struggle to fucking sell a pub gig.
Yeah.
And I fucking seen them many years ago at my local pub, and they were putting on like stadium shows in a fucking pub. He's jumping up on top of the speakers, fucking set up and
Dude.
going nuts.
A perfect example of that sort of thing as well is obviously Bellacore, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
When I remember, I think it was when Stones Reach came out before they went overseas and did a whole bunch of the festivals. I went and saw them at like Switch in Melbourne, like one of the like cool club kind of things. And I don't know, there was probably like a couple of hundred-ish people, maybe. Then they went overseas. And then they came back and were like, minimum is Gershon room. They just like, it was that thing of like, they went overseas and I mean, they're incredible anyway, but then everyone was like, who's this band from Australia who just managed to like open at all these festivals and then come back to Australia. And then it was just like, suddenly there was like, oh, we should be interested in this. I think that's a very Australian thing as well, where like, we get a bit complacent because it's like, oh they're from here, yeah, they're from my hometown. Yeah, ran into one of the boys at Macca's. Like the scene's so small almost in some ways that we kind of take it for granted.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I have people from overseas be like, yeah, I don't know if you know one of the bands from near, there's a band that we love from Australia, like Near Obliviscaris. I'm like, yeah, like I know the dudes. Like we play, yeah, and I think that's very common in Australia. Like everyone knows everyone.
Yep.
It's kind of like in Sweden. A lot of the Swedish bands were like, oh, everyone says we know each other, but we kind of do all know each other. It's very much like that. So it must be this weirdly insular thing where because it's so, even though it's such a big country, the scene itself is so confined. So then it must be really weird to other people from overseas in that sense because it is like such a tight-knit scene. So when bands do go overseas, it's almost like oh yeah, it's that band. But then, they go overseas and they do well because those people overseas are just like, fuck, band's incredible and they're from overseas and I've never seen them. So it's always perspective, grass is always greener, I think.
Exactly, and it makes us really, really passionate about our home scene as well because you do see a lot of the same friends and people you play with and 100%. Bands. I was at Nile and I bumped into a whole bunch of band people I know and mates, and I consider them all friends and family now, which is unreal. And everybody else can experience that as you guys travel around Australia. November 16th, you're playing Melbourne, Max Watts. November 22nd, Sydney at Crowbar. 23rd, Canberra at the Baso. Rounding it out on the 29th in Ballarat at the Volta. Look, Chris, I could talk all fucking day with you, man. This has been an absolute pleasure, but we better wrap it up. Dude. Do you have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, mate?
Dude, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I could probably talk all day with you about it as well. But anyone who's made it to here, look, please check out our new album, Emberglow. I would have to say it's the proudest I've ever been of any of our releases. I know that's pretty universal within the band. Give it a listen. If you like it, come down to one of the shows. If there's anything I can confidently say about us is at this point in time, we put on a hell of a show. We put everything into it, and I think all of our crowds tend to have a really good interactive experience. So if you're up for just really fun gigs that you can just walk away smiling from, come down. That's it.
Exactly. I can bloody attest to that. You guys have fucking put on a ripping show. Everybody go out, grab some Orpheus Omega. As you mentioned, the latest album is Emberglow. It did drop July 24th through Wormhole Death Records. You can stream it, but do something different. Go buy the fucking album.
And it's on vinyl as well.
And vinyl as well. And even better still, while you're at the shows, go line up with everyone else and buy yourself another black shirt and a heap of merch from Orpheus Omega. Chris, thank you so very much, mate. This has been an absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Dude, thank you so much.
Cool. Cheers, mate.
Oi, you're tuned in to Dry That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.